What's up, everyone? Let's talk about Diablo 4 Season 9. So the PTR is coming to an end. I've been playing it, and I want to put some thoughts out there. I want to talk about the good, the bad, and then the future as a whole of Diablo 4, because we're coming up to, Season 9, second expansion's on the way soon. I just want to talk about it. I think I've been very critical for the last few seasons. I think they've had a lack of innovation for the last few seasons. The recycling of the powers, the lack of endgame content. We're all aware of it, and it's been hard to be be positive in this space and say, oh, another season or new content. It's been difficult, but I think for the first time in Diablo 4 Season 9, there's some good stuff. There's some really good endgame changes that are going to make the endgame replayability a lot more fun. So I want to talk about it. And then some stuff that, still does need work. I want to mention that too. And as well, I'd like to hear your feedback if you've played it, if you're on a break, that kind of thing. So let's get into it. Okay, so first let's talk about the new exciting endgame content. So we've been quite hungry for endgame content. We haven't had any really new exciting stuff since a few seasons ago. The Infernal Hordes, that was a really exciting new thing to do at endgame. And, we've just sort of had small tweaks and changes and quality of life things over the last few seasons, some boss changes, that kind of thing. But now we have a new thing to do, and it's called these escalation dungeons. So Nightmare dungeons have kind of fell by the wayside in the last few seasons because you don't need them. You don't really need to do them anymore. It's more of an optional thing. So now we have this escalating Nightmare dungeon, and it's similar to how the Infernal Hordes work, where you go up in this progression of waves, and they get stronger and stronger. Well, in these escalating dungeons, it's a similar sort of thing of you progress through a dungeon, and then when you sort of get to the end of the dungeon, or you get to the escalation point, you then add more modifiers, add more affixes to your dungeon, and then you kind of run a harder version or one with more things going on, which is great, because the best thing about ARPGs is pushing yourself against more challenging outcomes. And the Nightmare dungeons never scaled. The Nightmare dungeons always, they were capped by whatever your torment level was. So once you hit torment 4, that was it. That was like a flat peak. Now with escalating Nightmare dungeons, we can hopefully see them getting more and more challenging. Now, as a reward for that, as you push further and further, there's a boss at the end. We get to fight Astaroth, the big dog fight, the big dog monster with the guy on the back. That was a really good fight in the story, and I think a lot of us have wanted to see that again, so that's very positive. On top of that, we also have these Horadric strong rooms, which are like these you can kind of like dip out of the Nightmare dungeon in a way and go into these rooms where you can increase like the rewards and the challenge, and it just adds another layer of complexity to a very, very simple endgame dungeon experience. I think we've had the most bland dungeon experience for so long, and this is looking like exactly what the game needs, in my opinion. As someone who likes that side of the end game, who likes that side of like the RNG challenge and progression, I think this is going to be fantastic. I'm very, very excited for this. The only critique I would maybe give it is it has a low ceiling. So you go through, you defeat the Nightmare dungeon, you escalate to the next level, which is then harder. You defeat it all again, and then you go again. You go for your boss and stuff like that. I would like it to keep going. I would like to just keep escalating it, keep adding more and more affixes. And then if you can just do something that's like super juiced with like 20 negative affixes, the rewards are just huge. I would like them to go down that route and just keep pushing it. But as a first, there's the PTR, right? And as the first stage of it, or the first thing they're showing us, I think this is incredible. I think it's very polished, very clean. And if it goes in the game just like this, it's still going to be really good. So yeah, big W there. And I think it's really what the game needs. Okay, so very big positive thing out the way. Let's talk about more powers. I'm just gonna lay it out here. I'm not a fan of the power system. I think reusing powers every single season as your main content or your big change is lazy. I think it's really, really just lazy content. As someone who's played every season, these don't feel any different than they did in season 2 when we got the vampire powers. It doesn't feel like we've evolved the power system in any way. They're just reskinned every season. And I'm going to be honest with you, if you've watched the live stream where they were like, oh, that you can do all this and all, it's just more powers. Don't get too excited. It's really not as hype as they made out. I will say there is a lot more depth to the system than there was in previous seasons. It does have an element of depth to it, but is it fun? No. Let's get that straight. So the first impression I would say to powers is I set this up. I made a really basic build for testing. I just made like a minion build to try the new archmages, and I just thought, let's make a simple build and try this. And you can barely tell you have the powers on, which is what a lot of us don't like the power system for. It's a very minor, small thing. I'm talking visually, like damage increase, yes. Build defining a little bit sometimes, but visually, does this feel cool? Not at all. The boss powers felt a lot more excited. Pop in, the boss powers, Belial's powers, dropping out like Anduriel's powers. All that stuff felt really, really cool and cinematic. These powers don't feel cool at all. In my personal experience, I found them to be very dull. Now, if you were to get into like as someone who makes builds, I think they're exciting. If you basically what you can do is it's like build a power. You choose a power, you choose a modifier, and you choose what spell that goes onto. So you put it onto the slot of the spell you want it to use. So say you're using a certain ability, you can then add a modifier that will suck enemies in when you do that ability, and then you can add another one that will like trigger a mob. You can like really tailor some cool stuff here. So if you're into making builds and you like trying things out, this is fun. However, I will say Diablo 4 has a very large casual player base that just look up a build and play a build. And if you're just looking up a build and slotting the best powers in that people tell you to slot in, this is a dry system because they don't look great. They don't look special. You can barely tell they're there. So that's what I'll say about powers. I think they will be fun to make builds with, but other than that, it's just more powers. Don't get your hopes up. Okay, so overall feel of Season 9. Is Season 9 amazing? If you haven't played for like a year, is it worth coming back for? If you played last season, is there enough change to bring you back again and do it all over again? Let's talk about that. And I'm going to be fully honest here. I am someone who makes videos about Diablo 4, so it is in my best interest for Diablo 4 to do well and for you all to play. But I'm going to be honest, this is more of the same. And that is not in the content. The endgame content, if you think of like what's available at endgame, you have the pit, you have the infernal hordes, you have the bossing, that's all there. And now we have a tweak to the nightmare dungeons, which is a good change. If you like the endgame loop of Diablo 4, it is the same with a little bit more. So that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. Is this drastically changing? If we look at something like Path of Exile, which when they add a new league, they really shape up the game. Like the last league added like 100 uniques, 100 new abilities. They really shape up the game. So it's like a different game almost. Good or bad, whether that's a good thing, let's not get into that. But they really shape up the end game. Diablo 4, it's like one new unique per class. And I'm going to be honest, looking at the balance changes, we haven't got the full patch notes, so don't hold me to this. But looking at the balance changes, and someone who's played every single season, I can already tell you roughly what the meta is going to look like. All the builds that were good in season 6 were almost all the same in season 7, and almost all the same in season 8. And season 9, if they massively nerf something, it's going down. If they added a new power to something, it's going up. Everything else is going to be roughly the same. So as a whole, this game will feel very, very, very similar to season 8. And I think that's where the game suffers the most. If you are coming back from a long break, it will feel good because it is in a better state than it was 6 months ago, a year ago. If you are trying to keep replaying this and you're looking for new stuff, that's where it will suffer. And I think a lot of that just comes down to the power system. There was a moment, there was this like small golden moment in Diablo 4 where they really started doing a lot with the end game, and they really started like adding loads of content. And we were getting lots of good stuff. We were getting like the pit, we were getting like the leaderboard thing, we were getting the infernal hordes. There was the new raid content that was added, and that all just fell apart, kind of like no one does a lot of that content anymore. None of it's been updated, and they've just got into this routine of we can just change the powers every season. We can just call them a different thing every season, and people will keep coming back, and people will keep buying the battle pass. And that's kind of the loop they've fallen into. And I got to be cynical and honest that's where we are. If you are aware of that and you're happy with that, the game's got better. Like, yeah, the game's got better. Are they drastically pushing the game forward and making it like the best ARPG in 2025? No. This is a game who they've got comfy. They're happy where they are with the amount of players they are, and they're not going to really deliver anything huge until they get to a paid expansion. I guarantee you the next paid expansion has some brand new class, loads of marketing, new zone, new endgame. It's going to have loads of stuff because you gotta reach into your pockets for it. So is season 9 better? Yes. Is it good? Yes. Is it going to be very, very, very similar to season 8? Absolutely. That's how I feel. I'm positive that this is one I'm going to enjoy. But it's nothing to get super excited about. Let me know how you feel. Obviously, this is a biased, very, very biased opinion of someone who's played every season. And you could say, oh, this guy plays too much. Of course he's going to feel, yeah, okay, yeah, I play this game too much. So I definitely have a biased view on it. What are your thoughts? If you're casual, maybe you've only played like 3 seasons, and every time you come back, it's massively different and it's perfect. I want to hear, how you guys feel. But yeah, that's season 9. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.